so they're squishy, soft, and breakable, yet everyone is scared of them. The comment, laced with a thick layer of disbelief, echoed through the command bridge of the Crowan warship Devour. Commander Brawl, covered in the dark chitin, his plates characteristic of his species, leaned back in his seat with a slow hiss. He watched the monitor, examining data pulled from a captured human scout ship. Screens flashed with images of Earth and its inhabitants. Cities of metal and glass. Streets brimming with life, all under a sky that was shockingly blue compared to the red-hued clouds of the seas. Everyone fears what they don't understand, especially the weaker species, he scoffed, turning to his officers. These humans are different. Yes, but the tales of their supposed ruthlessness? They're overstated. It's a tactic, an act meant to keep larger powers away. Nothing more? An officer next to him, Lieutenant Vor, muttered. The jar agreed to the truce. Even the Empire of Nine Worlds decided to leave them alone. Surely there's some truth to these stories if entire empires have backed off? Brawl's mandibles clicked in irritation. Cowards, all of them. Zarak, Juari, even the once feared Bror. All decided to observe caution when dealing with the humans. Their reluctance has handed Earth a sphere of influence it does not deserve. If none of them are willing to step up, then it falls to the Kron to end the charade. His eyes narrowed, revealing his resolve. We invade. The crew buzzed with murmur, but Brawl's authority was absolute. Within moments, the command center fell silent, with officers preparing for the upcoming assault. Kron warships were sleek, hulking beasts, each armed with weapons capable of leveling a city in moments. To Brawl, Earth's defenses appeared rudimentary, even quaint. Their fleets, a fraction of the Kron's size, would be overwhelmed in days. We'll strike their orbital defenses first. When their shields fall, we'll unleash our ground forces. Once we've broken their spirit, the galaxy will see humans for what they really are. The orders were relayed, and within hours, the Kron battle group surged toward Earth's outer defenses. Small human satellites and observation posts shattered in the first barrage, each destroyed with almost casual precision. The humans didn't even scramble interceptors, seemingly oblivious to the threat closing in. See? Pathetic. Brawl sneered as he watched the fragmented remains of Earth's perimeter float into space. They probably think we'll just pass by. His confidence wavered only slightly when the human counter-response finally launched. An array of what looked like obsolete ships drifted into view. They were smaller than the Kron craft, rougher around the edges, yet oddly resilient. Human vessels darted between Kron fire lines, unafraid of the overwhelming firepower before them. They avoided direct conflict, instead firing precise bursts that seemed to target weak points in Kron shields, chipping away at their defenses with eerie precision. What are they doing? Brawl growled. They're not even engaging properly. These are surgical strikes, designed to be a nuisance, not a threat, Vor said. Commander, it's strange, Vor added. We've detected that each human ship is equipped with jamming tech. Their radio signatures are indistinct, scattered. It's making it hard for our targeting systems to lock on effectively. Brawl clenched his claws. Enough of this. Fire all weapons. Reduce them to space dust. The Devourer unleashed a torrent of plasma bolts, sweeping across space and slamming into the human ships. Many disintegrated on impact. Others were knocked off course, but several remained. They were still moving forward, stubbornly advancing toward the Kron fleet, refusing to back down. They fight with no fear, Vor muttered, almost in admiration. They fight like fools, Brawl spat. Human arrogance. They've grown cocky from being left alone too long. His mandibles clicked in satisfaction as he ordered his ground troops to prepare for the invasion. Signal all landing units. Tell them to launch. Moments later, Kron dropships, ominous and gleaming, descended toward Earth's surface. Brawl watched the feeds as the first ships touched down in a sprawling city below, the human capital, New York. He recalled the initial squads deployed. Heavy Kron infantry marching through the streets, armored and armed with plasma rifles that could burn through any known alloy. The humans were waiting. Their soldiers, some dressed in rough combat gear, others barely in full uniform, held their lines in the streets, using the concrete jungle to their advantage. Kron troops took cover behind burned-out vehicles and fallen structures, but the humans moved with a kind of instinctive coordination that Brawl had never seen. They would vanish behind crumbled buildings, only to reappear behind his soldiers, ambushing them from impossible angles. They didn't flinch, even as plasma bolts whizzed past. "Do you see this?" Brawl hissed, pointing at the screen as he watched human soldiers storm a Kron position. They wore faces of grim focus, their eyes sharp and unrelenting. They did not waver, even as Kron forces advanced. Every human soldier knew his place, his role, and they fought with a precision and tenacity that gnawed at Brawl's confidence. The humans countered with an arsenal of explosive devices and small, nimble drones, which targeted and dismantled Kron formations with cold efficiency. "It's madness," Vor murmured, a hint of apprehension in his tone. Brawl's confidence faltered as the feed from the front lines became erratic, crackling with the unmistakable sounds of warfare and screams. The humans were pushing back. They were outgunned, out-armored, yet somehow they kept advancing. Kron squads went silent, one by one, their feeds cutting out as human troops overwhelmed them with tactics that seemed bred from pure desperation or raw, calculated strategy. "What is this?" Brawl muttered, his claws clenching so tightly that he felt the metal bend under his grip. "They're savages. It's like they have no fear of dying." Vor looked over, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the command screens. "Perhaps, Commander, that is the very thing the others fear. Their lack of hesitation, their will to fight when all reason says they should retreat. It's unsettling." "They're just animals," Brawl shouted, almost convincing himself. But deep down, something in him began to break. The Kron were used to dominating with fear, with sheer size and strength. Yet the humans, they did not back down. Each Kron victory came at a cost, a staggering, bloody cost, as the humans seemed willing to sacrifice anything to push back the invaders. "Commander, we have an incoming message," Vor said, his voice low and tense. Brawl's eyes snapped to the comms panel. A human officer appeared on the screen, his face calm, almost relaxed, even as chaos unfolded around him. "This is General Cole of the Earth Defense Force. You have one warning, Kron. Turn back now, and we will consider mercy." Brawl hissed in fury. "You dare?" Cole's face remained unchanged, his eyes dark and unmoving. "We've survived countless invasions, Kron. You're not the first to try, and you won't be the last to fail. The galaxy may fear us because they don't understand. You're about to find out firsthand why they choose to leave us alone." The transmission cut, and Brawl felt the weight of his own arrogance pressing down. Earth was no ordinary battleground, and humans were no ordinary prey. Brawl's mandibles twitched with fury, but beneath his anger, a sliver of doubt took root. Every decision he had made up to this point seemed calculated, logical, undeniable. Humans were fragile, their technology rudimentary. By all rights, they should have been no match for the Kron war machine. Yet somehow, they resisted. They defied even his most basic understanding of warfare. And now, with their forces emboldened, Earth's defenders seemed more like predators than prey. As the transmission from General Cole ended, Brawl barked orders to his officers. "Enough of this restraint. All units are to commence full bombardment. Ground forces, dig in and hold. I want the human resistance crushed." The Devourer fired up its main cannon, a weapon feared across galaxies, capable of tearing through any shielding, aiming at the heart of New York. Brawl was certain this strike would finally shatter human morale. With a thundering pulse, the cannon discharged a beam of blinding plasma, hurling toward the planet's surface. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the cannon glow lit up the screen. Brawl's satisfaction grew as the beam sliced through the atmosphere, heading straight for its target. But then, to his disbelief, a countermeasure fired up from the surface, a massive kinetic rail cannon, something that hadn't shown up on any scans. The two projectiles met in midair, and in a deafening explosion, the plasma beam dissipated. The Kron officers gawked as the human's ground cannon emerged unscathed, its operators already repositioning it for another shot. "What kind of defenses do these humans have?" Vor muttered, his scales darkening with unease. "They've been hiding this," Brawl replied, though his tone was less sure than before. "They've managed to obscure their technology from even our scans. We will not be fooled by their tricks again." But humans, it seemed, had more in store than mere countermeasures. As the ground forces hunkered down in preparation for an assault, strange signals began to emerge on Kron comms. Human soldiers had somehow hacked into the CR frequencies, broadcasting messages that filled the invaders with confusion. "Welcome to Earth, Katon. Enjoy the view while you can," One transmission crackled through. Our weather tends to turn nasty for uninvited guests. It was psychological warfare, and the human soldiers played it with an unnerving calmness. Their voices, laced with dark humor, baffled Brawl's troops. To the Kron, combat was all about intimidation, domination, but humans seemed to thrive in the chaos, mocking and taunting even as they faced a technologically superior force. On the front lines, Brawl's soldiers were advancing through the ruins of New York's outer districts, cautious yet relentless. Plasma rifles lit up the shattered cityscape as Kron troops systematically scoured the buildings. Every shadow was treated as a potential hiding spot for Earth's defenders. But when the ambushes came, they weren't from rooftops or alleys, they came from beneath. Human soldiers emerged from sewers, tunnels, and the wreckage itself, launching precise attacks on Kron flanks. Their firepower was modest by Kron standards, but their tactics were flawless. Kron units fell back, regrouping only to be surrounded and hit from multiple angles. Even as they fought, human soldiers continued to relay unsettling messages across the comms. "What's the matter, Kron? Running out of steam? Looks like you picked the wrong planet." Brawl's fury only grew with each transmission. He couldn't understand it. How did these humans maintain morale or even manage to laugh amid such brutality? The humans fought as though every inch of Earth's soil was sacred, and they would rather sacrifice themselves than see their home taken by invaders. "Commander," Vor reported, his voice tight with apprehension, "we're losing contact with several of our ground squads. Human soldiers are breaking through, and some of their attack patterns, they're targeting specific officers, even field commanders. It's almost as if they know our command structure." "What? That's impossible," Brawl snarled. But as he reviewed the reports, the data was irrefutable. The humans weren't just fighting. They were studying, adapting to the Kron tactics with alarming speed. Brawl felt the weight of something he didn't want to admit pressing down on him. These humans were learning from every battle, every skirmish. Just then, the Devourer's sensors lit up with new readings. Another wave of human ships was closing in, this time from orbit. They were organized, their formations tighter, more cohesive, as if they had studied the Kron weaknesses from the first engagement. "Shields up," Brawl shouted. "All defensive batteries, prepare to intercept." But the human ships didn't charge headlong into the fray. Instead, they coordinated an assault from multiple vectors, darting around Kron fire and bombarding the weaker rear positions of the Kron fleet. Their approach was disturbingly precise. Their attacks focused on draining the Kron defenses rather than simply damaging ships. "Commander," Vor's tone was desperate. It's as if they're taking apart our defenses one layer at a time. They're bleeding us dry." Brawl's frustration boiled over. "Enough of this. All units, initiate emergency protocols. Target any human vessels, no matter the cost. We will not be bested by a primitive race." Yet even as he issued the order, he could see the fear in his crew's eyes. The humans weren't just standing their ground. They were starting to push back. Earth's defenders had found the one weakness that Kron had never anticipated. They were willing to die for their planet, but they weren't going down without dragging their enemies down with them. Brawl's eyes narrowed, filled with disbelief and rage. These humans were nothing like the stories. They were far, far worse than any nightmare he had ever encountered.